Welcome to today's solution tour of the Vertex Plus tools for SAP ERP. My name is Susie Sue with Vertex, and I will be your guide for today's tour of the Plus tools. I've worked with many companies over the course of over 25 years implementing SAP with Vertex, and through that time, helped develop a number of the solutions that you'll be seeing today. I am very excited to present the Plus tools as they are instrumental in meeting tax department needs within the very complex environment of SAP while ensuring that procure to pay, order to cash, master data, and IT team needs are also met. So it's a win-win-win when you combine Vertex's O series with the accelerator and the Plus tools. After today's session, you will be able to meet three objectives. One is you'll have a better understanding of the most common problems facing tax departments in an SAP environment. Two is you'll learn how Vertex's applications will help to solve those problems. And three, you'll know what to expect when implementing these tools. So let's start off with the big picture view, and that is the approach that we take at Vertex is not just to implement a tax engine. Our solution is much more an end-to-end solution. And so aside from what you see on the right side here, where you've got Vertex O series with its content, processing logic, additional add-ons around address validation, compliance, cert management, and analytics, on the left side, we offer the accelerator and the plus tools. And these are actually installed within your SAP environment. And they're designed to solve very specific problems and to help you optimize your integration to Vertex. So what are Vertex Plus tools for SAP? Well, these are pre-built ABAP enhancement programs that are installed in your SAP environment, and they address the most common tax gaps. They're compatible with ECC and S/4HANA on-premise and private cloud versions, and they're compatible with different Vertex versions, including Q Series, O Series, and Cloud. They're also compatible with the Vertex accelerators, including CFA and the SIC interface as well. Delivered to you via transport files, they're installed by your basis team, and then they're activated and configured and ready for testing in a fairly short space of time. These don't require the development of custom ABAP programs because we've already pre-built them. So they don't require the same type of RICEF and custom development build and test that you would otherwise need in a custom ABAP program. Along with that, we provide ongoing technical support to these programs and ongoing enhancements and compatibility patches as well. So as you might move through different SAP environments, we do provide ongoing patches to ensure compatibility with those new SAP versions. We have well over 400 customers running both the accelerator and the plus tools. So we are pretty much the industry standard for how to deploy SAP-based enhancement tools for indirect taxes. Now let's focus on the Vertex Plus tools for sales. Before we get into the solutions, let's talk about what some of the key problems are. And from a 2021 poll we conducted of over almost 100 Vertex customers, we found that the key sales tax issues fell into certain areas. Specifically, we saw exemption certificates creating a problem, as well as when new customers are added in SAP, a lot of tax teams are not aware of the addition of those customers. Now, related to that, we find that tax teams also struggle with overbilling taxes to exempt customers, having those customers short pay the tax, and then having to issue tax-only credits to those customers. The other area that we saw a lot of issues were the requirement to get data for audits. So as you can see, between a third to almost a half of the customers that we polled had issues, common issues around exemption certificates, tax-only credits, and getting data for audits. So let's talk about how Vertex can solve these problems. Now let's start off with the basic requirement around calculation. This is where the O series provides the content, the rates, the rules, the logic in order to calculate the right taxes on your sales. On top of that, you can install the accelerated data mapping, which enables you to define the data fields that you want to use from your SAP transactions in your tax calculation. So it's quite easy to use data mapping drag and drop tool to send the data fields over that you require for your tax calcs. Now, on top of that, we offer 2 Plus tools to help you manage your customer exemptions. These are Plus tools that are installed in SAP and help you track and manage where you've got customer exemptions set up in Vertex. So Flux Builder is installed and it reads off your SAP Customer Master and gives you a nice synchronization check so you can see what customers have been set up in Vertex O Series. It can also make it really easy for you to maintain those customers and those exemptions in O Series, and you do it directly from your Flux Builder screens. Secondly, we have the drop shipment program, which you install in SAP and you can configure with certificate sharing and reciprocity rules. So that way you can apply home state exemptions where they apply and leverage the other certificates you might have on file for a customer in various states, be able to leverage those for states that have reciprocal rules to accept those certs. What this will allow you to do is to apply those exemptions up front without having to maintain all the certificates in Vertex and reduce the cases of you overcharging taxes to those customers and having to issue tax credits back to them. Now, as we move into the area of reporting and having to get data you need for your audits and also visibility to changes in SAP, this is where a combination of O Series and Accelerator and Plus tools work together. So within O Series itself, you have a number of extensive reports that provide line item transactional detail. Also, you can get your returns exports and returns reports out of O Series itself. On top of that, you can do your reporting directly out of SAP. And this is where our Accelerator reports come in. So we offer a number of detailed SD and AR transactional reports that read from over 30 SAP tables and provide over 200 fields in reporting. We also have a number of GL to Vertex reconciliation reports, so you can run reconciliations between your SAP GL and your Vertex numbers before you prepare your returns. And then we also offer a Plus tool called the Flux Monitor, which gives you visibility to data changes within SAP for any master data changes. So a combination of these reports will give you what you need for your audits and your monthly reconciliations, as well as keeping tabs on what changes in SAP that might impact you. And next up, the issue of sales tax credits, which is a very common problem in North America, and that is the need to have to refund just the sales tax back to your customers. Standard SAP processes don't really allow this, where you can process those credits and have them flow all the way through to your returns in a way that's easy to process. So we developed the Flex RFC AR program so that you can process your tax-only credits, easily pulling up the original billing documents, and then with a few clicks be able to process the tax credit back to the customer's account. The great thing about this program is that it's a very connected way of processing your tax-only credits. So we reference the original billing document. We also update the SD document flow. We update your Accelerator reportings. And most importantly, we update your Vertex reporting. So it's a nice, clean process for handling your tax-only credits. And finally, the area of testing and validation. So there are testing programs within O Series itself where you can test load files or run manual tests in order to validate your tax calculations. And we offer a Plus tool called Test Suite. This is installed in SAP and it helps automate the process of building your test scripts, validating data, running the actual execution of the SAP documents, including sales order deliveries and billings, and then providing reporting and analytics and documentation you can use for your testing. So this program helps to automate a lot of that process and reduce the number of hours needed to produce what could be thousands of test cases. So let's look at this in the context of a flow and how you see the integration between SAP, Vertex, and then the accelerators and the Plus tools that we just spoke about. When you have the basic SAP integration, and this is using the certified SAP integration, there's a number of tax calculation points between sales orders, billing, and accounting. So when you first plug in Vertex and connect it to SAP, that's what you're enabled, basic calculations. For most companies, this alone is not sufficient. You need some additional tools in order to optimize the whole integration. The first is with the accelerator, we put in the data mapping in order to control the data that we send from your SD transactions over to Vertex for tax calculation. This is where you can send additional data elements such as material groups or product hierarchies or different customer partner functions as well. On top of that, we have the accelerator reporting, which captures your transactions after you've posted them through to accounting, where you can see the details around your SD transactions. And then you can also run reconciliations between your SAP numbers and your Vertex numbers as part of your monthly compliance. Now we introduce some plus tools here, and this is where we see Flux Monitor, which you can install to monitor for changes in SAP data that might impact you from a tax standpoint. For example, you might want to monitor additional customers or plants or material groups or product hierarchies that get added. So this will be helpful for you with respect to maintaining data within Vertex or just knowing where it is that you need to be registered. We also offer the Flux Builder program, which not only monitors for the changes in customers, but also lets you check to see whether or not those customers have been added in Vertex. So we do that via a web service. We give you visibility to what customers and exemption certs you've got set up in OSeries. And we also allow you to maintain those customers and certificates as well. And you can do it directly from Flux Builder, which reads the SAP Customer Master. On top of that, we allow you to manage any drop shipment home state reciprocity rules within the drop shipment program. So you can configure the state rules for that and apply reciprocity certificates as part of your tax calculation call. Then in the event that you do have exempt customers that you've charged taxes to, you can feed that into the Flux RFC AR program, which will not only process the tax-only credit within SAP, but it will also update the SD document flow, it'll update your SAP accounting, it'll also update your accelerator reports and your Vertex reports. And then finally, the area of testing. So you can use our Test Suite program to not only mine your SAP master data and transactional data to find test data, but you can also use it to create the actual test documents within SAP. And the nice thing about that is it's creating actual documents in SAP and processing them all the way from sales order through to delivery and billing and accounting. And in doing so is triggering the calculation call to Vertex as well. So you can use it to not only test the SAP side of things, but you can use it to test your Vertex calculation and your accelerated data mapping and your Plus Tool drop shipment program as well. So it really comes in handy with testing the end-to-end process from SAP through to Vertex and back again. Okay, so why don't we switch to our SAP screens and we'll provide you with a quick demo of the Flux Builder and Flux RFC AR programs. So as I log into SAP, I can drill into my Plus Tool menu, and this is where I'll access my Flux Builder program. So we're going to start with that one first. Now, Flux Builder is the program that you can configure. Basically, you set it up with your preferences for how you want it to maintain and set up your certificates within the Vertex application. So there's a number of config options you can set up there. And then when you're ready to run your report out of Flux Builder, you come to this Flux Builder customer report. So what you can do here is run a report either on your all customers, or you can also just look at updated customers. So if you want to take stock of new or changed customers within a certain date range, you can do that after your initial setup, so that way you can keep tabs just on your added customers. But how about we go ahead and run all customers for a particular country and a particular company code. Let's take a look. So when I execute this, this is actually going to be doing a synchronization read. It does a web service call out to Vertex itself, and it's going to produce for me a report. So this is a report of my SAP customers within this company code within the US. So as you can see, I pull in some key fields from that customer, including the number, the name of the customer, their address, and then over here, I can see a couple of additional columns. Now what this does, it gives me an actual real-time check on what customers have been added in Vertex and which have got exemption certificates added in Vertex as well. So this gives me via the green light, red light, yellow light some visibility to that. So if I'm looking at my in Vertex column, this tells me if it's a green light that those customers have been set up as customers within Vertex O-Series. If they're red lighted, that indicates that they have not been set up. And then if I look at my exemption certificate column, green light means that the customers have been set up with the exemption certificates in these states that we see here. And if it's yellow light, it means that there are certificates added, but not in the state that's noted here on the customer master. Red light means that there's no customer exemption set up for that customer. So it's possible, as you can see with some of these examples, where you might have a customer set up, but no certificates on file. Others, you can see both customer setups and exemption certs are set up as well. So if you want to, it's very easy to maintain customers in Vertex, and you can do it from the Flux Builder screen. So let's say if I choose this customer here, my Nebraska customer, I'll see that it's red lighted both in the customers and the exemption certificate column. So in order to set up the customer, I just need to highlight the customer and click on Maintain Customers. So what this will do is it make an immediate web service call out to Vertex, and you'll see that it's now turned green. So this is an indication that it was successfully added, and it has added the customer to Vertex O-Series itself. The second thing I can do is maintain certificates for the customer as well. So I can simply highlight that line item, click on Maintain Certificates. So now it's going to take me to the certificate screen within Flux Builder. And from here, I can see that every state and Canadian province and territory is listed here. So I can manage and maintain certificates at that level. So all I need to do is activate the various states here. I can also see from this screen where this customer has got ship to set up. So if I look down this column here called ship to state, I'll see a checkbox here next to Nebraska. So that indicates that this customer has got a ship to in Nebraska. And if there are any additional ship tos, you'll also see checkboxes next to that. So we do query the configuration within SAP to determine if there are linked customer partner functions to a given customer. So if I'm using sold to, for example, it will look for any linked ship to customers tied to that sold to. So that'll indicate that in the ship to column here. You can also maintain your certificates and set them up based on what your preferences are. So this is aligned with how the O-Series certificates are enabled as well. So you can create blanket certificates, you can do limited, which are based on certain parameters, or you can do a single use, which might be based on a document number. With that, if you do any limited, you can also select your taxability drivers to apply. So that way you can do exemptions that are only specific for certain product or item classes. You can also attach certificates to the customer record as well. So you can simply go and browse and look for any certificate files that you might have on file and attach those to your record as well. So if you've got a certificate on file, you can just browse for that and attach that to one or many records in order to link that certificate to the record. So that way, when you push it through to O-Series, it will update as well. You can also choose the type of transaction you want it to apply for, the dates for application, the start and end dates, as well as the expiration dates, and that can also automatically populate review dates as well. And as I scroll across here, I can also apply some notes or hard copy URLs as well. All right, so it's very easy to provide the information needed on the certificates. And then from there, you can also highlight and check the box for pushing a number of those certificates over to Vertex. So it's very easy. You just highlight the line items and then click Create Certificates. So as it goes through and processes, it will then, if it's successful, will turn those green and give you a certificate ID. So this number was issued from Vertex itself when it has successfully applied the certificate. And it's quite easy to go and check out the certificates in O-Series itself. All you have to do is click on this link here. It will take you to your Vertex URL. You can log in from this point. And from here, you can drill in and take a look at the customer that you've just added, which is my US 20002. Okay, and now I can hit search. So as you can see, it's added in records for my different exemption certs that I've added. So I've added 9 exemption certs I can see on the left side here in my Flux Builder screen. And then on the right, it is confirmed that it has added those 9 certificates here within OSeries itself. So it's very easy to do. You don't have to log into OSeries, but I just wanted to show you that it's instantaneous, that once you maintain your certificates here, it updates it immediately into OSeries. And let's say if I want to add another 3 here, highlight those, click Create Certificates. You'll see in the bottom left here, it indicates it's processed. Those 3 just got added. So now on my right side here, let me just hit the search button to refresh that. And you'll see that we now have 12 certificates in OSeries. So that's how quick it is to add those certificates on. Okay, so it's really easy to maintain certificates using Flux Builder. You can also use Flux Builder to test that your exemptions were taken or have taken effect. So you can just highlight those line items and click on the Check Exemption button here. And what this will do is actually trigger a pro forma tax calculation call out to OSeries and determine if those customers have been added into OSeries. Okay, and now let's look at how we can link our Flux Builder program to tax-only credits. So let's say you've added a customer, you've applied new exemption certificates, and you want to see whether or not you've billed tax to that customer. So that's easy to do. So from within the customer screen, you can drill into the exemption certificate screen, highlight the line items for where you might have certificates on file, and then click on the Flex RFC AR button. From here, you can then select the date range for how far back you want to look for billing documents. And also, if I check the Send Attachments box, if I have any certificates on file and I want to add those to my tax-only credits that I create with the program, this will attach my certificates to those Flex RFC documents. So now it's going to query for this customer in those ship to states whether I have billed any taxes to this customer. And you can see I've got quite a few billing documents here that I have billed taxes to. And you can see that I've got a number of billing documents where I've charged taxes to this customer in states that I now have set up as being exempt. So as you can see, I have quite a few line items here. And also you'll see that I've got some line items that are green. We've already credited those customers using the Flex RFC program. We've also got a red line here that indicates it's already been canceled, so there's no need to do an adjustment on it. So I can avoid processing a tax-only credit on these that are either ineligible or have already been processed, or maybe they've already had the taxes already credited. So now as I scroll back up to the top, these are all eligible for Flex RFC crediting. So I can highlight one or multiple line items. And if I want to post those adjustments, just click my post selected. And this will now create the tax-only credit within SAP to refund the taxes back to the customer's account. So it creates an actual adjustment document. If I drill into that, they turn green when they're done, and it creates a refund back to the customer's account, reverses out the sales tax as well. It also references the original billing document, so you've got a little audit trail link. And then as I back up and go back to the original billing document and look at the document flow, I can see that my Flex RFC adjustment that I posted today is now part of the SD document flow. So that way you can see where there are Flex RFC adjustments done against your various billing documents. Now this also simultaneously updated the Vertex reporting and updated your Accelerator reporting, so you have everything in sync both in SAP and Vertex. So that's how easy it is to process your tax-only credits using the Flex RFC AR program. And as you saw, I was able to integrate this directly from my Flux Builder. So it's quite a seamless process of maintaining your exemption certs with Flux Builder and then drilling into the Flex RFC program to process any tax-only credits for those exempt customers so you can refund the taxes back to them. And these two programs address two of those very common issues that we talked about at the beginning, the issue about maintaining exemption certificates, and then also the issue about having to credit taxes back to the customers. All right, so that rounds out our quick demo of the Flux Builder and the Flex RFC program. And that kind of finishes the section that we had for order to cash and sales. Now we can move on to the purchases and procure to pay. Okay, so let's talk about the procure to pay issues. So when we polled our 100 customers back in 2021, we found that quite a few had issues around the training needed for buyers in AP. And this was a lot due to the fact that you're dependent on how buyers and AP people process those documents in SAP. So we definitely saw that as being a fairly big challenge for companies in having to train those users to code things correctly. Now, that's definitely the incorrect coding of that can definitely lead to bad tax calculations. So we saw that as being quite a common issue. And then that led to having to do use tax adjustments. So we saw this as being quite a common issue on the procure to pay side. Tax teams are having to come in after the fact, after invoices are posted, and process use tax adjustments. So let's talk about how Vertex Solutions can solve these. So when it comes to being able to automate the tax calculation on procure to pay, we really want to do it in an end-to-end fashion and reduce the number of keystrokes that are needed by buyers and AP folks. And this is how we have a combination of O Series being able to automate the tax calculation. We have Accelerator also being able to send that data over to O Series so we can make those automated decisions on multiple data elements. Also within the Accelerator, we have a program called Tax Code Default. And what this allows you to do is to automatically default tax codes on purchase orders, service entry, LIV, and FI invoices so that we can trigger the call out to Vertex without users having to put the tax codes in there. We can also control overrides to those tax codes, which is very important to ensure that the call out to Vertex is controlled and handled from a system standpoint. This also alleviates the need for buyers and AP folks to have to figure out what tax codes to apply. The second major area that we can alleviate AP folks is during the processing of AP invoices when you have a difference in tax between what a vendor bills you and what we calculate in Vertex. Now in SAP, if there is any difference, it can stop the invoice from posting and then require AP to manually adjust the invoice and manually perhaps change the taxes or change the tax code in order to make the invoice balance and post. Well, we really don't want to burden AP with that because it can really slow down their performance. So what we do is we implement a plus tool called Vendor Recon. What this does is it sits within SAP and it gets invoked during AP processing. So we can automatically balance those invoices and apply the necessary actions to either accrue some or all of the taxes, to pay the vendor's bill, or perhaps to short pay the vendor. So it applies this automatically without requiring additional keystrokes from the AP teams. It also works really well with AP automation. So if you're deploying AP automation programs like OpenText or Ariba or Coupa, you really want to reduce the amount of AP intervention, and Vendor Recon works very well with that because it enables those invoices when they come into SAP to be automatically balanced by our program. That's how we can integrate O Series and Accelerator and the Plus tool called Vendor Recon to really automate the end-to-end process so you don't rely on users in the procure to pay process to have to make manual decisions and manual adjustments. We can also automate special calculations. So it's quite common for companies to have additional tax calculations they need to do on procurement card or expense allocations or non-standard transactions. So we enable that with the FlexTax program. You can load in files into FlexTax, which then can enable tax calculations by Vertex and the posting of the accruals within SAP. So FlexTax can handle a number of different inputs. It's most commonly used for P-card to enable use tax accruals on procurement card, but it can also be used for expense allocations as well. Okay, moving to reporting and audits. So there's a number of options here. You have got O Series reporting, so you can do some transaction detail reports out of O Series itself. You can also do reporting out of SAP, and we find a lot of companies really need to do that because there's much more data available within SAP, and this also is your system of record. So it picks up more transactions, including those that didn't call Vertex, and it also picks up transactions where you paid sales tax to vendor. So the accelerator reports are more complete from an auditing standpoint. This reads from over 30 SAP tables and has over 200 fields as well. And accelerator reports also offer reconciliation reporting, much like what we have on the order to cash side, where you can do reconciliation reporting between your GL and Vertex. Now, on top of the standard reporting in Accelerator, we have Diagnostics, and this is a plus tool report which goes one step further. This provides some pretty advanced analytics on tax decision analysis. It can also be used to drill down and find more data on your transactions, including things like the vendor invoice images. And Diagnostics also has some additional features around what we call data fix. And this is the ability to set up rules where you can override the bad data inputs that might be coming in from upstream users. So if you find, like many companies do, that you're dependent on how procurement folks, including requisitioners, buyers, and AP people code the documents, and the selection of things like material groups and GL accounts can have a good or bad influence on how your tax calculation results, well, you can utilize data fix rules to correct some of those bad data inputs. So it can really fine tune your tax calculation without you having to train your users on how to be applying those codes. So it really is a way for you to train the system as opposed to having to train actual users. Next up, we have a program called Flux Monitor, and we mentioned this during the order cache section. This monitors for any changes in SAP master data or configuration that might impact the tax department. And then finally, around the area of use tax adjustments, we offer the FlexRFC AP program, which allows you to process adjustments on your use taxes so that you can reverse or apply use taxes that may have been missed during the original posting. And it does it in a very connected way. So we can allow you to post the adjustment for the use taxes within SAP GL, but it also updates your accelerator reports, updates your Vertex reporting, and it also has a nice audit trail back to the original documents. So it's a very clean, connected way to process your use tax adjustments, where you can also have it automatically filed on your Vertex returns. Okay, and finally, we've got testing. So within the Procure to Pay process, you can use O-Series batch and online tax calculation tools to test directly in Vertex, but you can also use Test Suite to mine your SAP data and find the data needed to process actual purchase orders through to goods receipts, through to invoicing and service entry, and this will create the testing needed to test your SAP documents as well as your Vertex calculation. Okay, so let's look at this in the context of a flow. So we have the standard SAP processes that call out to Vertex for basic calculation. And then as we layer on the accelerator and the plus tools on top of that for the optimal integration, we have the accelerator first. We deploy that to enable automated tax code defaulting, so you don't rely on your users to apply tax codes. That way we can trigger the call out to Vertex. And then we also use the accelerated data mapping to control the mapping of that data, so you can map multiple data points from SAP into Vertex for your tax calculations. We then install Vendor Recon, and this gets invoked during AP processing to automatically balance those invoices. So if there's any difference between the tax that your vendor bills versus what Vertex calculates, we can automatically adjust those invoices to either accrue the taxes, to pay the vendor as billed, or perhaps to short pay the vendor. Okay, once you've posted your documents, we have accelerator reports that we can read so that you've got a nice audit report on all of your AP activity. You can also use that for your reconciliations as part of filing your returns. And then you can take it one step further and use the diagnostics program to do advanced analytics on your spend. So this way you can audit your transactions, you can find your errors, and you can also apply data fix errors so that it can correct the errors from occurring in the future. And then from diagnostics, you can link to our FlexRFC AP program. So from where you find all your errors in diagnostics, you can then very easily process FlexRFC AP adjustments in order to process those use tax corrections. And those use tax corrections that we process update your SAP GL as well as your Vertex reporting. Okay, and then if you have any additional needs to process P-card or Excel spreadsheets in for tax accruals, you can use our FlexTax program, and that will enable a call out to Vertex and process your accruals directly in SAP at the same time. Then if you want to monitor for any changes in master data or configuration, you can use our Flux Monitor to do that. And then finally, when you're ready to test your end-to-end solution, you can use Test Suite to mine your SAP data to produce test scripts, and then also to create the documents starting from purchase order through to service entry, goods receipt, invoicing, and accounting. And in processing all of these documents, you can use it to test your accelerator. You can use it to test your vendor recon. You can just use it to test your reporting as well, because it actually creates the SAP documents needed to trigger the call to Vertex and to post all the way through to accounting. So this is the optimal P2P flow that includes the accelerator and the plus tools. Okay, so let's switch back over to SAP and do a quick demo of diagnostics with FlexRFC AP. Okay, so let's go back to our SAP screens, and when you install diagnostics and FlexRFC AP, you're going to access them from our Vertex Plus tool menu. Let's start with diagnostics. I want to start off with the analytics piece of this and show you how it can find your errors in your transactions, and then from that you can feed it into FlexRFC AP to process corrections toward those errors. So let me go and run some analytics on a couple of years of activity in my system for certain document types in one company code. I'm going to execute this. And this program is going to read my transactional reporting data that I actually have in my AP detail report, and it's going to give me some analytics. So what it shows me on the top here is just some baseline numbers. So it's telling me how many transactions we've analyzed. It's going to summarize the total gross amount of that spend. It also will break out the tax base and the taxes paid or accrued on this activity. And then it's going to give me some statistics around my over, under, and my correct activity. Now, over is basically where we have paid or accrued taxes on transactions that should have been exempt. So it looks like from my population here, about $93,000 or just under 5% is overpaid. It also gives me statistics on my underpaid, and this is a higher percentage. It looks like just under or just over 15% is underpaid. This means that I have not paid or accrued taxes on something that should have been taxable. So that's quite a large error ratio. And then it's also telling me that just under 80% of my spend is correct in terms of taxability. This means that I've paid taxes on taxable items and I've not paid taxes on things that should have been exempt. So let's look at the detail here. So what we see down below here is line item detail. And this basically reflects the data that you'll also see on your Accelerator AP report. But I have consolidated this into a template or a layout where I can see my vendor, I can see the tax document, the ship to jurisdiction, the state, the tax code, vendor, GL account, the material group, and the PO line text. I can also see the base amount and the tax amount, if any, was paid or accrued. I can also see my actual taxability and my expected taxability. And this expected taxability is actually derived from, you can load in matrices or rules in order to tell the program what taxability to apply. And a lot of times our customers will leverage the Vertex matrices that we issue and research, and we can load those matrices into diagnostics to leverage off that. This will also tell me whether I'm under or overpaid and whether I matched or did not match the tax matrix for these transactions. It'll also indicate if I've got any rules that apply, and I can kind of see as I scroll down different colors here. So you can basically determine on the coloring whether or not I've got correct or underpaid transactions. I might also have some red lines for overpaid transactions. So as I scroll down, I can see I've got different statuses that apply on a line item basis. Okay, there's an overpaid right there. Okay, so from here, it's done some analytics and told me whether I've got some potential under or overpaid transactions. So that's one part of what Diagnostics does. You can also use Diagnostics to flag cases where users have incorrectly coded the document, and you can set up data fix rules to correct these going forward. So for example, as I scroll across here, I might see situations where somebody's coded a purchase from a particular vendor in a way that it's yielded the wrong result. For example, I've got Equipment Corporation. Now, one thing that Diagnostics also does, it gives you the ability to Google a couple of fields here. So if I want to see what it is a particular vendor does, I can just double click on the vendor name and it will go and open up your browser and Google that vendor. So I might want to check out this, Fisher Scientific, same thing. As you can see on the right here, it's Googled that vendor for me. The other field you can do some Googling on is the PO short text. So sometimes the PO short text might indicate a model or serial number or some better description of what's actually being purchased. So repairs to real property, double click on that, and whatever's in that field, we Google automatically. So this will hopefully help the tax department when you're doing your reviews. The other thing that you can get out of Diagnostics is links to vendor invoice images. So as you see on the very far right here, I've got some little icons here with paper clips or with a globe. Now what this indicates is there are documents or URLs attached to these SAP invoices that would represent a vendor invoice image. And then you can see here there's a vendor invoice attached here. So if you're able to access the vendor images through that means, then you'll be able to see them here on the diagnostic screen. And you'll see a little icon with that. The cool thing about this, not only can you very easily get to the attachments, so you can just double click on the attachment image there, go and open up that document. So there's the vendor invoice image there, but you can also export these en masse if you need them. So for an audit, if you need to save off all your vendor invoice images for the auditor, you can simply highlight all the line items there, click on output attachments and save this to a directory. So once you do that, you'll be able to save these as individual files. So let's say if I save that to my invoices directory, save that, and that way you can access them later on for an audit. So that'll transfer that over. It'll also give you a quick schedule with the file path for all of those saved images that you can export and keep on file as well. Okay, and backing up to the main screen again. So from here, you're not only able to see the under and over taxability, you're also able to get to some tools that help you with your review of the transactions. And then you're able to also set up rules. So if you see cases of users miscoding a document, you can set up rules in order to prevent those from causing incorrect tax calculations in the future. So for example, if I focus on Equipment Corporation, and we know that we buy equipment from Equipment Corporation, since I Googled them, that's what we buy from them. And most of the time, users have coded the right GL accounts of supplies or consumables, but on occasion, we might see that they've coded incorrectly. And an example might be they've coded to consulting services or pest control. We know that that's not right. We don't buy consulting services from this supplier. So what you can very easily do is highlight one of these line items, click on rules, and create a rule to correct this going forward. So if I wanted to indicate that this was supplies, this is not services, I can make a little note here as to why I'm setting up this rule. I can also assign it to a bucket here that there was a wrong GL account, and then I can set up certain drivers around this where I might base it on the vendor. So if I double click on the vendor here, it'll make it one of my data triggers. I might also base it on the fact that they miscoded it to the consulting services account. And what I can then do is set up an override rule. Now what this override rule is going to do, if I say basically they should have used this account instead, I can now use this rule to, going forward, if somebody coded an invoice for this vendor to this incorrect account, it can automatically override the data being sent to Vertex during the calculation call so that even if the user miscoded the invoice, we will send the corrected data to Vertex. So while we don't change the account on the actual SAP document at post, we do and can control the data being sent to Vertex during a calculation. So we can send the right account over, ensuring that even if the user miscoded the document, we still get the right tax calculation. So this allows you to apply a data fix rule to cleanse that data during the calculation so that you can get the right tax results. So that becomes a very powerful tool in ensuring that even though users may miscode documents, you can still get the right tax results. And what you see here is that rule that I just created, it's Rule 45, found other line items that this rule applies for. So it gives you nice visibility to how often these errors might occur. So gives you great flexibility and control in ensuring that you can get the right tax calculations even if users have miscoded the upstream purchase orders or invoices. And what this does, it kills two birds with one stone. It allows you to get the right tax calculation, but it also does it in a way where you can train the system to code the right document, as opposed to having to go back to all the users, of which there may be hundreds or even thousands in your organization, without you having to go back and train them on all the nuances of how to code things so that you can get the right tax count. So diagnostics is a very powerful tool to enable you to get, really fine tune your accuracy without having to burden your upstream procure to pay teams as much. All right, so that is the diagnostics demo. Let's now switch to FlexIRC AP. So how I'm going to do that is I can actually get to that program directly from my diagnostic screen. And what I can do is I can highlight a number of line items of underpaid transactions where we did not pay or accrue taxes on certain purchases that should have been exempted. So they're marked as underpaid in diagnostics. So what I can do is highlight those line items and then click on my FlexIRC button. And when I click on the FlexIRC button, it will basically launch a new window. And from there, it'll pull in all the details from those line items. It also made a pro forma calculation call out to Vertex to determine how much tax we would be accruing. So it shows it on the screen here. I can also scroll across and see that it's going to be a tax only debit. I can also update my data elements if I need to. And I can also change what levels of taxes I apply. Now, right now I have it set to full. If I wanted to, I could choose to accrue just the state taxes or just the city taxes, or I could do a specified amount. So let me go back to the full taxes I want to accrue. And when I'm ready to post it, I can simply highlight the line items and click on Post Selected. So what this will now do is create my FlexIRC AP accrual to post the tax accrual that we had earlier missed on the original document. Now what we're doing is a secondary accrual that we can link back to the original. So when that finishes processing, it'll all turn green, and I'll be able to drill down into one of these documents to see my FlexIRC document, which accrued the taxes. It also posts it to the expense and cost object of the original document. It refers to the original document here in the reference field, and it also builds an audit trail back to the original document. So if I go back to the original invoice here, I can see a couple of places where I've got reference to the FlexIRC adjustment. One is in the long text. So what we can do is automatically go into the original invoice, which on an original posted document, there's not much you can change, but you can change the text here. So we've automatically updated that with a reference to the FlexIRC adjustment. But if I also go back to the original LIV document, it has a reference to the FlexIRC document here in my accounting list. And then if I even want to go further, optionally, I can go back to the purchase order and we can add a tab to the PO listing the FlexIRC adjustments tied to every given PO line. So we can build a nice audit trail back to your original doc flow. All right, so now when I go back to my FlexIRC screen, I've successfully posted all of these corrections and I hit the back arrow one more time. This will take me back to my diagnostic screen. And now those particular line items that were underpaid have now been changed to green in color, you'll see here. And now they are underpaid with the FlexAP posted marking. So that way we know we have adjusted them, we've corrected them even though they were underpaid originally. And then also I can get to my FlexRFC postings directly from this screen as well. So I can link to that document from here. So I've got a nice audit trail to show the auditor that I've done these accruals. So it's very easy to process your adjustments, um, with FlexRFC and Diagnostex, and do it in a very quick way that you can even get them done in the same posting period as the original posted invoice. So anyway, so that rounds out our demo of Diagnostex with FlexRFC AP, and hopefully that gives you a nice view of how we can really enhance your analytics as well as your ability to process use tax corrections. Okay, so that rounds out our procure to pay section. Now let's talk about the implementation of the Plus tools. When you implement the Plus tools, there's a number of steps you take. First, you're going to install and activate. So within that process, there's a number of steps taken to install the transports in your SAP environment. And then from there, depending on the tool, there's different activation steps that we provide a step-by-step guide around in order to activate the program and tie it within the SAP processes. From there, you can do your requirements definition and determine how it is that you want to set up your program. And with this, we've got some requirements questionnaires that will help you with working out how you want to configure the program according to your preferences and requirements. From there, you can configure the tool with your preferences and settings. After that, you're ready to test. So testing of the Plus tools really depends on the individual program, but we have ready to go test scripts that will help you with testing the various features and functionality within the Plus tool itself. And we usually advise that you do the testing within a dev and a QA environment. And then after you've done your testing and approved, then you're ready to move to prod. So there's usually a checklist that we go through in order to migrate the transports from your development environment into production. And at that point, you'll be ready for your Plus tools to be running in production. So that whole process can take anywhere from a few weeks to a few months, depending on the actual tool and how integrated it is within your order to cash or your P2P process. Okay, so that rounds out the implementation process. So just to conclude, there are a number of tax gaps that we see many companies experiencing. We see, with these common gaps. From that, we see that, changing business processes alone are not enough. So that's why we offer the Accelerator and the Plus tools to help you close those gaps. And these are embedded within SAP, so they're very close to the actual SAP processes and data for which you need to solve these problems. The other nice thing is that these keep Vertex connected. So it's very optimal to ensure that you've got Vertex connected and that it can then be used to file your returns. So it's got everything, including your adjustments, filed into Vertex. So it makes it a lot easier to file your returns out of a single source of truth. And then finally, our implementation approach is highly standardized. So we help you get these deployed fairly quickly and within a standardized process. Okay, well, that concludes today's session. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope it was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or reach out to your Vertex account executive. Thanks for joining us. Goodbye.